Can we start, please? Okay. Yes. So we have, and the members of the group have before them the proposed agenda, the provisional agenda for the meeting, and I want to submit the agenda for their approval. I want to know if there are any comments or suggestions for the agenda. You cannot hear? Okay. Shall I repeat? Yes, no, it's okay. Yes. So I want to ask the members of the IAEG if they have any suggestions or comments on the provisional agenda. Please let me know before we move forward. One of the members, please. Okay. In that case, the agenda is approved, and after having the opening remarks by the authorities from Mexico and the UN, I would like to go to... Okay.
Very eager to take the floor.
Okay, Japan is very eager to take the floor, so please.
I'm sorry, yes. Actually, well, I'd like to have maybe a question. Yes, I mean that the global indicator framework agreed upon at the 47th session of the UN Statistical Commission will not only be defined technically, but the specific proposals for refinements of indicators made by member states during the discussion will also be taken into account, and the refinement of the indicators themselves will be considered. However, in the provisional agenda, there is no subject for discussion about refinement of indicators. We think that is very regrettable, and the IAEG-SDGs should first discuss procedures for refinement of indicators more than anything. Therefore, as requested by the UN Statistical Commission, we argue that the IAEG-SDGs should discuss refinement of indicators as one of the agenda items during this meeting. But in that case, it will not be possible to secure enough time for discussion at this third meeting. Please suggest alternative means to consider indicators. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. We will have that on item 13. And, okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, so now we move to item number 2 of the agenda, that's the overview of the outcome of the 47th session of the Statistical Commission on the global indicator for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And for that, I will give the floor to... Who is going to present this? Okay, Francesca, please.
Yes, thank you, Enrique, and good morning, colleagues. Good morning, everyone. I just would like to say a few words about the outcome of the Statistical Commission, especially for those of you who are not in the room during the discussion at the Commission a little over 2 weeks ago. We can say that from what I hear from many of the colleagues, the agreement on the indicators was considered quite a success. So it's a sort of an accomplishment of this group, as also some of the speakers during the opening session have highlighted. So there was an agreement on the indicators, although there was also a strong recognition that the work is in progress and there is a need to continue to work and refine the indicators, especially in some of the areas where the indicators are not well defined. And also in some other areas where the indicators were not considered entirely appropriate to address the targets. So I would like to go over, if we have the PowerPoint somewhere. Yes, thank you. So I would just like to go quickly through the decision of the Commission, and I will focus on decision 1, and I have the thing, right? Decision 1 of the Commission, which refers specifically to the Global Indicator Framework for the Goals and Targets of the 2030 Agenda. What we call decisions in the Statistical Commission are really sort of what the agreements by the Statistical Commission to guide the work. Normally, they guide the work of our division as Secretariat of the Commission, the work of countries, of member states in the various statistical areas, and to a large extent also the work of the international agencies who have very large and important statistical programs. So the Statistical Commission, of course, appreciated the work done by the IAEG. There were many statements really congratulating the group and recognizing the importance of the process that was very transparent and inclusive. They agreed on the terms of reference of the group. So the revised terms of reference that are now that were presented in the report of the IAEG are now the terms of reference that guide the work of the group. And they will stay until the Commission takes up this issue again for further revisions and even for considering the rotation of the members that will come up at the end of the second year. And then, of course, the most important point of the decision was that the Commission agreed on the proposed global indicator framework as a starting point and subject to further technical refinement. So that really summarizes the sentiment of the Commission and the tone of the discussion, where most statements were very much in favor of the proposed indicator framework, but recognizing at the same time the further work needs to be done and some of the indicators will need refinement. In particular, the Commission requested the IAEG-SDGs to take into account the specific proposals that were made during the discussion. And those of you who were in the room might recall that some countries made specific reference to indicators and proposals for refinements. I won't go into the detail of what those indicators are, but some of you might remember, for instance, 3.8.2 was mentioned by many countries and was stressed in several statements. And then there were, for instance, statements by groups of countries, like the least developed countries had a statement pointing out a series of indicators where they saw some shortcomings in terms of how they address the specific needs of the least developed countries, the landlocked developing countries, the seeds, and countries in special situations. So again, the Commission also recognized that in order to have a robust and high-quality indicator framework, there is a need for the technical process to continue over time, and including making use of the expertise in other related expert processes. And so this group, the IAEG, is asked to provide proposals and plans for reviews of the indicators to the next session. So in other words, over this year, the group will have to work on that, on those proposals and present them to the next session. It also agreed with the proposed program of work, which is presented in the report of the IAEG to the Commission, and with the proposed work plan for this year, between the 47th session to the 48th. So very quickly, the program of work, you have seen it, is in the report, and of course it talks about what to do with the 3 tiers of the indicator, classifying the indicators into the 3 groups, and then establishing methodologies to develop the tier 3 indicators, and also look at the tier 2 indicators in terms of what available sources exist and what needs to be done in terms of strengthening country capacities to produce those indicators. And of course, explore new data sources. This is something that was stressed by the speakers during the opening, the need to take into account all the new methodologies, the new technologies, integrating data sources, etc. And of course, regularly review methodologies for indicators. Also, the program of work talks about establishing a baseline for tracking indicators. This is something that was already raised in the meeting in Bangkok and that the group will have to address and make a decision on. Address question of periodicity of reporting and review and discuss data gaps and capacity building issues. And this is important, and we'll hear this during the next presentation and also during the next couple of days, how to bridge the work of this group with the work of the high-level group on partnership and capacity building, which is also a group of countries. There are 22 members there, and they are working to develop a global action plan to address capacity building issues and issues of partnerships, including how to mobilize resources. So it's important that this group communicates with the high-level group the needs, where the data gaps are. And then agree on a format of compilation of metadata for the global indicators. And that's something the group has already worked on, and there's some form of metadata already available on the website of the Secretariat, but a lot more needs to be agreed and done. In terms of the work plan for this year, until next commission, these are the specific elements: the global reporting mechanisms, establish the tier system, develop tier 3 indicators, the work plan that has to be presented to the commission, and establish the procedures for the reviews and the approval mechanisms to be agreed by the commission next year. And that would also include some sense of the timing, you know, how many times is the group going to review the indicators, and of course there is a need to have a balance between having some stability of a list that can be used for review and for follow-up and reviews, and at the same time taking care of the refinements of some of the indicators. And then, of course, review data availability for tiers 1 and tier 2, and that is, again, related to the needs for capacity building, and develop guidance on disaggregation, data disaggregation, continue the discussion on interlinkages that was initiated in June last year, the first meeting, and then somehow got lost because the focus of the work was so much on identifying the indicators for the framework that the discussion on the interlinkages became sort of second priority. And then, of course, have the two meetings that are part of our regular way of working, like 2 meetings per year. So other decisions were related to, again, reporting back to next year commission on progress made, especially as relates to tier 3 indicators. There was also a strong emphasis on the importance of these indicators as global indicators, leaving the total sort of freedom to national statistical authorities and national processes to decide their own national indicators. And this was highlighted in many of the country statements during the discussion. And also emphasizing the importance of national ownership in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. There was strong attention to the needs, the specific needs of the least developed countries, landlocked developing countries, seeds, and other countries in special situations, as I mentioned earlier, not just in terms of addressing the targets with the specific indicators that are relevant to these groups, but also in terms of recognizing their special needs, recognizing also that they might need sort of a subset of indicators that are more appropriate for their specific circumstances, and of course the capacity building is particularly important in those circumstances. And then, of course, there was many statements related to the importance of strengthening capacity building, and so there was a decision on this, stressed that the implementation of the indicator framework will present a challenge in many countries. They also recalled the ECOSOC resolution 2006/6. Those of you who worked on the monitoring of the MDGs. Might remember this was an important resolution that addressed both the needs for capacity building in countries, but also the need for full transparency and engagement of national statistical authorities in the production of estimates for global indicators. And again, a reference to the specific groups of countries. Agreed that the compilation of global indicators will be based to the greatest extent possible on comparable and standardized national official statistics. And this will be data that countries regularly provide to the international statistical system through mechanisms that already exist, and in many cases mandates that are very, very old in the respective areas of expertise. And I don't need to explain that. I'm sure all of you are aware of how that works. And then when there are other sources or methodologies being used, those should be reviewed and agreed by national statistical authorities and presented in a transparent manner. So that calls for sort of a dialogue between the two systems and working closely on those methodologies. And finally, agreed that the coordination between national statistical systems and international organizations is important. And that, of course, would facilitate, the transparency and efficiency in reporting. And that attention should be given to strengthening reporting capacity of poorer countries. That's, again, the experience of the MDGs has shown that in many cases there are data produced at the national level that don't reach the international statistical system because of weaknesses in the reporting mechanism. And last but not least, certainly, is the agreement that improving data disaggregation is fundamental for the full implementation of the indicator framework and to fully reflect the principles of the 2030 agenda to ensure that no one is left behind. And in this particular work stream, there was a suggestion by one of the members of the Commission to establish a subgroup on data disaggregation that was agreed by the Commission. So the IAEG will establish a subgroup to work specifically on this important area. And this concludes my presentation. I just would like to stress the link of this decision 1 with decision 2, which relates to the work of the high-level group on partnership and capacity building, which will be addressed in the next presentation. So both decisions are very relevant to the work on the indicators. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. I would like now to open the floor if there are any comments or questions to the Secretariat. Thank you. The U.S.
Thank you, Francesca. With regard to the means of reporting, I wondered if you could add your thoughts regarding how member countries should interpret the guidance and the decision for reporting from countries to international statistical systems, and also the statement from the Secretariat at the close of the session, which called for creation of an SDG indicator database and dissemination platform, which would examine existing cross-cutting outputs and their dissemination to optimize, align, integrate the production and dissemination of statistics. I think that these are actually compatible statements from my perspective, but I think it's easy perhaps to become confused between the two. So I wondered if you could add a few thoughts to explain.
Thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? Jennifer, I think some part of your question was not very well understood here. Micrófono, por favor.
Here, back to where you were.
Okay, so I think in one of the decision points that Francesca reviewed was acknowledgement, maybe you can put up the slide, that national statistical offices would be reporting on a follow-up and review of the indicators. Maybe you can put up the PowerPoint slide with the decisions. I'm not sure if this is decision element L or M, but maybe that would help. Calling for the national statistical offices to, the slide before, please. Yes, L. Here it says, agreed that the compilation of global indicators will be based to the greatest extent possible on comparable and standardized national official statistics provided by countries to international statistical systems. That statement, and then with the side reference to existing mandates of international organizations for reporting, and then to compare that information with information that the Secretariat provided at the end of the Commission meeting, where the statement was that UNSD will initiate the development of an SDG indicator database and dissemination platform. And in the way I reconcile these statements, and this is my question, I guess, the way I reconcile these statements is that the national statistical offices would be invited to submit their statistics and other information to the dissemination platform, and then the international organizations can pull those contributions from that platform. But I think that there are, I've heard some questions on this issue and how these two statements would work together. So that's why I ask for you to let me know if I'm understanding it correctly or if you have a different understanding. Does that help?
Thank you. Sorry, I just missed the second part, the statement. I wasn't sure what statement is. That's the director's statement at the end of the commission. Okay. The international agencies have a mandate in their respective areas of work. Like ILO has a mandate that goes back to, I think, 1920 or something, even before the UN was established. So countries have always reported to agencies in various areas. That's the good side of the story. Like there are a good number of indicators for which the reporting mechanism is very well established. It's always been like that. And we cannot go back to countries and ask for the same data. That's a decision, I think there was even a resolution of the commissioners some years back. We cannot duplicate efforts. So countries can only, so the countries only report once on that specific data set and not multiple times. So as Secretariat, we would not go back to countries to ask for the same indicators. We would go to, the agencies would provide the data to us, like they do for the UN database, for all our databases. We have same in the statistical yearbook, all the data dissemination that we do are constructed in that way, like taking the data from the international agencies. Of course, that doesn't apply to some of the new indicators where methodologies are still being developed and there's no well-established reporting mechanism. That will be part of the discussion under Tier 3, I imagine, where this sort of mechanisms are going to be established and where, are going to be created. That's our understanding. So what you refer to in the statement, I think, is the database that will compile all this data series, which is very similar, although like 7-8 times bigger than what we had with the MDG database, which was a compilation of data from the international agencies. So the statistics divisions or offices or units of the international agencies submit the data to us through different ways. try to encourage SDMX standards for transmitting the data and the metadata, which is somewhere in the agenda the next 2 days also for discussion. Number 9. Yeah. I don't know if that answers the question. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Francesca. Please, Fabiola from Italy. Yes.
Thank you, Ricketts. First of all, for saying me, Fabiola. I'm familiar with this group, so thank you for calling me with my name. I have some questions for the presentation that Francesca has done until now. And in particular on interlinkages analysis, I would like to understand if there are some inputs coming from the Statistical Commission discussion in terms in which way we can continue this work inside this group, and in particular, if we can also work with the political actors in developing a common methodology, a suggested methodology for this type of action or activities of this group. And if we are going also to constitute a subgroup for these activities on interlinkages. This is the first question. Then the second question, I would like to know in which way we are going to manage the discussion on methodologies, and in particular for the gray indicators. This is not the case. I know that we are going to discuss in tiers system, but I would like to understand better how we can put the gray indicators in the tiers system and maybe reopen the discussion, in particular on the indicators that for us are not so relevant or fully relevant for the targets. And finally, the third question is related to the statistical report. If you can tell us much more on this, if there is any standards for the statistical report, in which way we can contribute not only to submitting data, but also to suggest the type of analysis with the UN agencies, or if there are any standard for this statistical report. Thank you very much.
Okay. I was sorry, we were just consulting because some of the issues you raised were actually raised during the closed session this morning, and perhaps we can then later report on what was discussed by the group. In terms of, there are two sort of work streams. One is looking at the tiers, so tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and focusing on tier 3 because we need to produce a plan to present to the Commission on what is being done on tier 3 indicators. And then there is another, and that is strictly on the indicators with which we are happy. Then there are indicators that were somehow, either raised during the discussion of the Commission or on which some of the IAEG members have raised questions. Those are indicators that not necessarily belong to a specific tiers. They can be in any of the 3 tiers, but those are indicators for which there is a need for refinement or making sure they address the target. In fact, some of the proposals by the least developed countries were for adding indicators because there were targets that were not addressed in their entirety. Some of the elements that they thought were important were missing. So those are, if I interpret correctly the discussion that we had this morning in the closed session, the members feel like this is 2 work streams. Both are important and both have to be carried out somehow in parallel, and they are interlinked, of course. the interlinkages. There was not much said during the Commission. I think same way as the IAEG, the Commission also was focused on let's agree on the indicators rather than all these other elements that are equally important, but somehow the timing was they needed to reach an agreement on the indicators now for the list to be brought to the ECOSOC and General Assembly. So I think there was a statement by the Netherlands that raised the issue of going back to the frameworks and looking at how the indicators somehow can be brought back into some frameworks. I don't know if you want to interpret that also as some work on the interlinkages. There are some relations, but it's not the same thing. So that was it. No other interventions refer to the interlinkages. But nevertheless, this is something that the IAEG had agreed. It's in the report and it's in the work plan, and the work plan has been approved. So we had made a proposal to establish a subgroup, similarly to the disaggregation group and other groups, working on this. So then if countries are in favor, and we'll need volunteers probably to lead that or to do the work.
There was another question, yes.
On the analysis, right?
Yes.
Yeah, there was a question on the analysis. Well, we work as Secretariat, but not just us. In fact, we are just one of the various, in the international system, the various partners who work in assisting countries, especially who ask for assistance in doing their national reporting and their analysis, and in some cases preparing national reports, in other cases those countries that have volunteered for national reviews to present to the high-level political forum in July. We work very closely with them. Colleagues from UNDP here and other agencies participated. There is even a task team within the UN Development Group that work specifically on this, producing guidelines and assisting countries who want to do this type of work. It's more, it's not really related to the global indicators though, because the national indicators are not necessarily the same, so they might choose to use the same or some of the same, but not necessarily the whole list. And that's how we work, and we're working on a manual, basically, guidelines for the UN country teams to work with national governments on the production of the national indicators and the national reports. That's so far what's been done. There hasn't been another discussion, I think, within the IAEG, not even in the closed session on this particular issue. But there's been a huge demand from countries. I think colleagues from UNDP might remember, I think it's 85 countries that already have sent a specific request to work with us, with the Secretariat and with the UNDP and the task team on producing national reports and national indicators, including, of course, the analysis and how they present the information in the report.
Thank you. I just want to say that at the beginning of the afternoon session, we will be explaining how we are going to go with the tier system. So, is there anyone else? So I would like to close this item, and now we move forward to item number 3. That's the update on the work of the high-level group for the partnership, coordination, and capacity building for statistics of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and it's going to be presented by Luis Gonzalez from UNSC. Please, Luis.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Good morning, everybody. I would like to give a brief presentation with an overview of the work of the high-level group for partnership, coordination, and capacity building for statistics. So let me start with some background. As most of you know, this group was created in 2015 at the 46th session of the Commission to provide strategic leadership for the SDG implementation process as it concerns statistical monitoring and reporting. So this group has so far met 4 times, the first 2 times via teleconference once the membership was established on 7th October and 1st of November last year. And then there were 2 face-to-face meetings organized this year in January and March 6, just before the main session of the Commission. And the next meeting is scheduled to take place in the end of May, 25th to 26th in Budapest. So the mandate of the group was revisited during this Commission's this session of the Commission, and it includes in the revised terms of reference the following main elements, if I can summarize them somehow. So first, the group is tasked with establishing a global action plan for data for the follow-up and review of the agenda, of the 2030 agenda, with providing strategic leadership for the SDG implementation concerning statistical monitoring and reporting within the framework of the fundamental principles of official statistics and in close consultation with the IAEG-SDGs and existing initiatives. So, as you can see, one of the main purposes of this revision of the terms of reference was to clarify and make more explicit the interrelationship and division of labor, if I may say, between the IAEG and the high-level group. So also this strategic leadership was stressed should promote key issues like national ownership, capacity building, partnership and coordination, and consistency between national and global monitoring and reporting. So the group has also some advisory and advocacy roles to play for resource mobilization and harnessing the data revolution for sustainable development, and is tasked also with providing guidance on the content and organization of the UN World Forum on Sustainable Development Data, which, as some of you may know, is one of the main recommendations from the Independent Expert Advisory Group of the Secretary General on a Data Revolution for Sustainable Development. So these are the current members of the high-level group. The group is being co-chaired by Côte d'Ivoire and Hungary. And now let me go back to a very brief summary of the decisions made by the Statistical Commission regarding this group. So first, the Commission indicated the implementation of indicator framework will require appropriate efforts to strengthen national statistical capacities and ensuring coordination between the IAEG-SDGs and the high-level group. It was decision 1K. That was from decision 1 that Francesca just talked about. And now in decision 2, some of the ones that I would like to highlight here are the approval of the revised terms of reference with the introduction of a rotation system for members and the clarification of the role of the high-level group as a UN focal point for coordination with partnerships and other agencies of the system, of the UN system, to address SDG data and statistical gaps. So gaps in SDG data and statistics. Another important decision, or part of the decision, is decision 2D, where the Commission expressed their views on the concept note presented for the UN World Data Forum, and it was decided that this concept note will be finalized by the high-level group in full consultation with all relevant stakeholders and in line with the Secretary General's synthesis report. And finally, I would like to highlight decision 2E, where the Commission decided that the outline of a global action plan for sustainable development data will be developed further in consultation with all relevant stakeholders and taking into account existing regional roadmaps. So, with regards to the UN World Data Forum, now I would like to provide you some summary of what has been done and what is being carried out right now and planned as next steps. So, a subgroup of the high-level group has prepared a concept note for the World Data Forum, which, as I said, was submitted to the Commission in the last session. And now national statistical offices and international organizations have been invited to provide their comments and feedback, which will be reviewed by the group again and discussed in its upcoming meeting. On 8 March, the Undersecretary General of DESA sent a letter inviting countries to submit their expressions of interest for hosting the forum. And 4 countries responded to this invitation, and their responses are currently being reviewed and followed up by the Secretariat, of course in consultation with the members of the high-level group. And the high-level group will further refine the concept note and develop a detailed plan for the organization of the forum, which is to be formalized in its next meeting in May. The other main topic, which is part of the Commission decisions that I summarized previously, is the Global Action Plan for Sustainable Development Data. So the high-level group presented an initial outline which aims to provide both a long-term vision and a short-term guidance on statistical capacity for the implementation of the 2030 agenda. Its current structure, which is included in a background note available as part of the documentation of the Commission, consists of a preamble and key strategic areas and objectives. So this draft, it has to be emphasized, is work in progress and will continue to be developed, taking into account feedback from the global statistical community. And in its next meeting, the high-level group will discuss it, will discuss further refinements, as well as a possible time frame for the action plan. So that's the status so far regarding this initiative. And I would like to finish with information of 2 other activities of the high-level group. It has established a subgroup tasked with the development of a communication strategy and the establishment of mechanisms for the involvement of observers and issue partners in its activities. So this is work which is currently being carried out by the subgroup, and we expect to have some guidance on this regard very, very soon. And also following the decision of the Commission at the last session in March, a joint IAEG-SDGs high-level group subgroup is being established to address statistical capacity building priorities for the implementation of the indicator framework. And this is part of the discussions that we will have in the coming days here and also among members of the high-level group and the IAEG-SDGs. So I conclude with this. Everything I talked about is with much more detail available in different documents in the high-level group website, in the Statistical Commission website, the report of the Commission, including the revised terms of reference, and the outline for the Global Action Plan and the concept note for the World Data Forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. I just would like to add that right now we are drafting some terms of reference for this subgroup, joint IAEG-HLG. We have now 2 representatives of HLG, the United States and Italy. And well, with this proposed draft will be shared with the IAEG members this Friday. And then we will take it to the high-level group, and so we expect to reach probably before the next meeting of the high-level group an agreement of the terms of reference and how we move forward. And the idea of this group is to enforce and to strengthen the coordination and the efforts between these two groups, so that the global plan of action or action plan it's really fulfilled. So now I open the floor for questions and comments to the presentation made by the Secretariat. No one? Okay. The Interagency and Expert Group held a closed session this morning that began at 8:30, but we were not able to finish. So I propose now to the open meeting to break for lunch, and to the members of the IAEG to convene at the other room to finish the business of the group, so that we can take advantage of the 25 minutes that we have before us. Thank you. We reconvene at 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. Thank you.